Something historic just unfolded on the world stage, and Canada was right at the center of it. At the 2025 APEC Summit, Prime Minister Mark Carney met with Chinese President Xi Jinping, and in that single meeting, Canada's role in global politics may have been rewritten. It was the first time in 8 years that a Canadian Prime Minister sat down with China's leader. Yet what captured attention wasn't the handshake or the formalities. It was the tone. Where Xi's past meetings with Donald Trump were tense and transactional, his meeting with Carney was warm, open, and surprisingly relaxed. And that difference said everything. Mark Carney has transformed Canada's global image, from a quiet observer to an active, respected player. And the world is responding.
It is a pleasure to meet you again and to meet you for the first time in my capacity as Prime Minister. I had the great pleasure of attending, amongst other meetings in China, the G20, over which you presided, at a time of great hope for the international system and great progress under the banner of the G20. I look forward to further progress with your presidency of APEC next year. As you mentioned, our countries have a long history of cooperation, engagement, and trade. 55 years of diplomatic relations marked the anniversary 2 weeks ago. In recent years, we have not been as engaged. In fact, as you know, this is the first formal meeting between the Canadian Prime Minister and the President of the People's Republic of China for 8 years. Distance is not the way to solve problems, not the way to serve our people with people-centric growth, as you have advocated. Pragmatic and constructive engagement is, and I welcome the momentum that has been established.
The moment was modest but historic. Two leaders seated across from one another, one representing the world's most populous nation, the other leading a country now seen as a model of stability and influence. But this wasn't just a photo op. It was a restoration of trust, reviving a relationship frozen for nearly a decade. As Xi greeted Carney, the tone was unmistakably different. Genuine smiles, shared laughter, and visible mutual respect. This wasn't how Beijing treated Trump's America. This was how China welcomed Carney's Canada. It wasn't about power or size. It was about credibility. And Carney brought that back in a way no Canadian leader has in years. Let's remember the backdrop. For nearly 8 years, Canada's relationship with China was in deep freeze. High-level talks had stalled, trade discussions were gone, and diplomacy was limited. Why? Because Washington preferred it that way. The U.S. wanted Canada dependent, politically and economically, ensuring any contact with Beijing went through them first. It was a structure built on control, not cooperation. But Carney is rewriting that playbook. In less than a year, he's done what few thought possible, reopening the door. Not by bending, but by leading. He approached Beijing not as a follower seeking favor, but as an equal, a nation offering innovation, stability, and access to Western markets. This is Canada arriving as an independent power, charting its own course when China noticed.
I also welcome the invitation to come to China to further the dialogue, and I very much look forward to doing so, because it's through this constructive and pragmatic dialogue that we will address a path for current issues, that we will establish a road to seize the many great opportunities between our countries, and also to have the platform that's needed for the dialogue to help build a more sustainable, inclusive international system.
At that same summit, Xi also met with Donald Trump, and the contrast couldn't have been sharper. When Xi met Trump, his tone was cautious, his body language stiff. Their conversation felt formal, almost forced, two rivals tolerating each other. But hours later, as Xi met Carney, the mood flipped entirely. There was ease, there was laughter, and something rare in modern diplomacy, genuine rapport. That moment, Xi leaning toward Carney, smiling, said more than any press release. It showed that Carney's Canada has become a nation even superpowers want to work with, and perhaps more tellingly, it showed just how isolated Trump's America has become. For Beijing, the signal was clear. Canada now represents stability, predictability, and principle, everything. Washington no longer does what we're witnessing as the result of a long-term vision. One Carney set out quietly when he took office. His strategy isn't confrontation, it's connection. While Trump burned bridges, Carney built them. While others chased short-term wins, Carney invested in long-term partnerships, from Southeast Asia to Europe. In energy, technology, and trade, Canada has become a central figure in new global frameworks designed to reduce dependence on Washington's volatility. And now, the world's second-largest economy wants in. This isn't about choosing sides. It's about restoring balance, ensuring Canada's future isn't tied to America's mood swings.
This meeting today is long overdue. It has been 8 years since a Canadian Prime Minister has met with the President of China. We now have a turning point in the relationship, a turning point that creates opportunities for Canadian families, for Canadian businesses, and Canadian workers, and also creates a path to address current issues. So very pleased with the outcome of the meeting.
Then came the moment that shifted the entire summit. At the end of their meeting, Xi Jinping invited Mark Carney for an official state visit to China, the first in almost a decade. That invitation wasn't just symbolic, it was strategic. For China, it was a recognition of Canada's renewed relevance. For Carney, it was validation, proof that his patient, measured diplomacy is paying off. In global terms, it was more than a gesture. It was a standing ovation for what Canada is becoming.
In his remarks, Xi congratulated Carney for becoming Prime Minister and noted that China-Canada relations have achieved a recovery and momentum towards positive development. Xi also invited Carney for a state visit, which the Prime Minister has accepted.
But this meeting is only part of a larger realignment. Carney is positioning Canada as the bridge, a nation major powers can trust when others can't. While Trump alienates allies and divides partnerships, Carney is weaving connections that give Canada leverage no matter which direction world politics move. This is the strategy behind the handshake. Every new deal with Asia or Europe strengthens Canada's independence and weakens America's dominance. That's why this meeting matters far beyond APEC. It's a signal that the global balance of respect is shifting, and Canada is on the right side of that shift. To the world, it may have looked like a meeting about trade, but beneath the surface, it was about leadership. Xi knows Carney represents a different kind of Western leader, one who sees diplomacy as collaboration, not competition. And Carney knows Canada's strength lies not in force, but in trust. Every handshake, every word, every image from that meeting carried the same message. Canada is no longer defined by its proximity to America, but by its principles. That's what separates Carney from Trump. Where Trump tries to dominate through fear, Carney leads through credibility. And in today's world, trust travels further than fear ever could. This wasn't just another summit moment. It was a confirmation of Canada's new role. For decades, Canada was seen as polite but secondary. That perception is gone. Under Carney, Canada has become the bridge between East and West, respected in Beijing, trusted in Brussels, and quietly envied in Washington. Xi's warmth toward Carney wasn't just diplomatic courtesy, it was respect. His coolness toward Trump wasn't personal, it was symbolic. It symbolized a new world order, one where leadership is earned, not assumed. And for the first time in a long time, the world isn't just listening to Washington, it's listening to Canada. Because while Trump clings to the past, Carney is already shaping the future. Subscribe to stay informed as we continue covering the stories shaping Canada's place in the world.